the exercise right now is to move these around and brown them. Frying the spices and getting like a nice, you got the onions starting to brown a bit there. So I'm gonna add another pinch of salt. That's all the salt we need. So I got about maybe a cup and 1/3 of coconut with this. Very colorful, beautiful side dish. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com. I'm in the kitchen today. I'm gonna make a dish that I mentioned in one of my videos a few weeks ago called Thoran. So it's a South Asian dish, very common in Indian cuisine, but not limited to that culinary style. Thoran, if you're gonna Google it, search it up. Goes great with curry, biryani, all kinds of different things. It's a vegetable dish using vegetables like cabbage. It's not limited to cabbage. And of course, I grow collard greens in my garden. It works great with collard greens. That's what I'm gonna do today. I mean, your main ingredients for this are the greens, coconut, grated coconut, I got some carrots and onion, okay? So let me just run through the ingredients here. I'll put them up in the description box of the video, but just for reference, 2 large onions, a cabbage or a few heads of collard greens, a small cabbage, 3 carrots. You don't have to have carrots, but it's nice to have carrots. Some grated coconut, 1 or 2 cups, really depends on how much. It's a sort of a ratio between your green to coconut, right? But the more coconut, the sweeter it is. It's delicious. It's like a rich, delicious side dish to go with some main course type thing, at least in my opinion. And then you get the array of spices, some chili powder, teaspoon, half a teaspoon of turmeric, about a teaspoon of cumin. I like the cumin, like whole seeds. You can use powdered cumin, but the seeds are better because you can fry them up a little bit. Oil, cooking oil, and a little bit of lemon to put on at the end just to bring up the acidity. So let's get started. First thing you got to do with your pan is brown some onions. Now browning onions can take time, so I'm going to show you a trick for browning onions that saves a lot of time. Okay, so I got 2 here. Just gonna peel them out real quick. I'm always amazed at cooking shows where they show, you know, cutting up onions like it's some incredibly complicated, exotic thing that no one knows how to do. Nothing could be easier than cutting up an onion. You don't need to dice this. It can just be in sort of long slices like that. Okay, I'm gonna put these all on a plate. What I'm gonna do is put this in the microwave, okay? What the microwave will do, it will cook them somewhat, but what you're really going for with the microwave is to bleed the moisture, right, to steam out. Because what the microwave does is it heats up the water in whatever you're cooking, in this case a vegetable, heats up the water, throws that out as steam, dehydrates the vegetable. That's why if you put bread in a microwave, it just turns as hard as a rock because you take all the water out, right? There, that's all we got to do with that. Now, for microwaving this, you can spread it evenly on the plate. Don't have any chunks. I've got 2 onions here, so I'm kind of treating it. A lot of microwaves have a button called potato. It's like a potato setting. I like to use that for a lot of things. If you don't have a potato setting button, just put it on high for like 3.5 minutes. It should be about the same. But because I have 2 onions, it's almost like 2 potatoes. I'm going to hit the potato button twice, like I'm cooking 2 potatoes. Also, when you're using a microwave, for those that do that sort of thing, you're inclined to want to put it right in the center. You got that thing that spins around. It's actually better to put it off center a little bit, right? You get all these little, microwaves bounce around inside of there, and it actually does a better job in terms of cooking if you just have it off center a little bit. So let's stick that in there. Make that happen. Potato, go. Okay. Now, while that's happening, I got these onions. I got to grate these up. All right, now you could use a food processor for this, but it's not hard to grate onions. I mean, I like using the old knuckle buster. A lot of these old tools It's just a question of getting familiar with them and learning how to use them without removing the skin from your hands, right? So you go fairly quick until you run out of carrot. Then you just slow down. So you got like just a nub left. And that you can dice up or you just eat it, right? Whatever you want, right? Good to do this over a bowl if you've got one. Actually, like you can see, I have it close to my body and actually have it against my belly. It just helps to stabilize it. I think the ability to use a lot of these old tools has been lost as people use food processors and stuff like that, which is fine, especially if you've got arthritis or some other thing like that. But, you know, for whatever time you save, I mean, I'm only grating 3 carrots. Whatever time you save using the food processor, remember, you got to take it out of the thing, you got to plug it in, you got to set it up. I think a lot of that time, unless you're doing a lot of stuff, I think a lot of that time is lost cleaning the food processor. So I often find myself using these somewhat antiquated tools just because all in, you actually spend less time, right? Because this is nothing. I just throw that in the dishwasher and it's easy to clean. Food processor components, some of them really don't like being in the dishwasher. Now these little bits and pieces, it's not a big deal. I mean, because they're not much of the volume. Actually, a really simple way to deal with them is to just do that, right? Same way you do garlic, right? You just do that, right? So not a big deal to prep up the carrots. Okay, so now our carrots are ready. I got that ready. Everything's ready. I guess I could, while I'm waiting, chop up the collard greens. So let me show you that. All right, so here I got my collard greens, beautiful, nice collard greens, right? And I've removed the stem, right? I meant to show this on camera, but I forgot. I just got, but you just grab the stem and you sort of, you know, if you were a kid, you used to do a thing with grass called tree or bush where you slip the, you know, you take some sort of little weed and you go like that. It's the same sort of thing. You grab the stem and you just pull like that and the greens come off the stem. You could cook the stem. Here's a little bit of stem on this one so I could sort of show you. You're sort of, you know, removing the stem, right? The bottom stems, the thicker stems, they're extremely fibrous and woody and and they're just not ideal. I mean, you can cook them, but, and if you were certainly in hard times, you could certainly save them for stock or soups or whatever, but yeah, for this dish, they'll take away from the texture of the dish. I wouldn't put the stems in it, all right? So again, this is something you can do with a food processor. I'm cutting these in maybe 3/16 or 1/4 inch, what's that, like 1/2 centimeter thick, right? You're just cutting it up like noodles, right? That's not a particularly hard thing to do. Again, you know, all the machines and contraptions that people tend to use for this stuff are unnecessary if you've made a point of developing your knife skills. And I love just the exercise of practicing, refining, and honing my skill with a knife. You know, you try to go as fast as you can go without cutting your fingers off, right? And then when you have your guests over, you can show off. You can get them to tie a bandana around your head and, you know, chop something up, chop something up real fast, right? But it does save you time. I mean, so much of cooking is actual food preparation. If you ever get a job in a kitchen, when you're new, food preparation is basically, you're called a prep cook. And most of what you do, you're not standing over an oven. You're doing this. And there's some guy yelling at you saying you're too slow. And you didn't do a very good job. But I mean, you can see we're almost done. How long did that take? Was that overwhelming to cut all that up? It's nothing, right? It's just not a big deal. And it's just all a question of learning how to use the tool as an extension of your body, extensionality, right? And there's something beautiful about learning to use a tool as an extension of your body. For me, anyway. Once you get, there's a threshold you cross over. When you first start off, you're clumsy, awkward, and very frustrating and slow. And then at some point, you start looking like, well, all of a sudden you have a skill. That's not common, right? So you're doing this cool thing, right? Like chopping that up in very little time. All it takes is just daily dedicated practice. Anyway, our onions are ready, so let's go over to the stove and get that going. All right, so I'm heating up the pan here. You know, sometimes people ask me about having one of these ceramic top ovens. I've used cast iron pans on them. Mine are all scratched up. My opinion of ovens is that they make them so poorly nowadays, there's just no point in treating them nice. I mean, this is our second oven in this house. We bought the house 10 years ago. They just don't last. Already one of the burners doesn't work properly in this one. But one trick to make your ceramic top behave like propane is just to put one of those old-fashioned things and get a little space, right, between the pan and the burner. And even with Teflon, you can have the burner up a little bit higher than you normally would, right, because it's not right on the burner. Now, I'm going to leave this off for now, just to get things going, to get the heat going, right? So, let's see if we got, I got a sizzle there, okay. So, you can see the onions have gone kind of soft and limp, right? Oh, there's still a little peel there. You can catch that. So, in just the 6 minutes while the oven, or the 6 minutes while these onions were in the microwave, we've achieved what would have taken about 12 minutes on the pan, right? So they're already limp, and we've forced out a lot of the moisture. So these will be easy to brown. They'll brown up real quick. Now, I mean, if you were going to cook these in an authentic way, you'd want to use maybe ghee, which is kind of clarified butter with the milk removed. I'm just using vegetable oil here. I got a bit of this fake margarine stuff, but I don't know what it's like at high heat, so I just use vegetable oil. But you use whatever's good. If you have ghee, use that, because it's just got better flavor. I want to put a bit of salt here. I'm just going to put a pinch of salt here. I apply the salt in a couple applications. Right. So the exercise right now is to move these around and brown them. Okay, a bit more oil there. I probably got a tablespoon of oil. Okay, now while that's happening, we're going to add our spices too, because it's my understanding that frying the spices adds a unique character to these. And I mean, any one of these amounts of spices, the amounts I listed, you can increase them or decrease them depending on your taste, right? This is just what my recipe says. I don't measure these things precisely. As you can see, I'm just using like the kind of spoon you'd use to have like a dessert spoon, which is roughly a teaspoon. So I've got the turmeric and I've got the chili powder. Now I'm going to add cumin. As I mentioned before, I like adding the seeds. You put the powder in, it absorbs the oil. And so then you have to add more oil, right? Because things don't fry properly. So we're trying to brown our onions. We want that oil sort of working on everything to get things browned. And frying the spices and getting like a nice, you got the onions starting to brown a bit there, right? Getting a nice brown caramelization on the onion. This is key to making this dish extra delicious. You just get a nice taste. And you don't need to microwave the onions to make all that happen, but it cuts the time way down, right? So if you think microwaves are unhealthy or something, don't use them. I certainly have not read anything that's convinced me to be afraid of microwaves, based on my understanding of physics, chemistry, and biology anyway. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. We're getting, like already these are browning, right? We're getting really good brown. Browning onions can take 20 minutes if you're just putting them right in. So we're doing pretty good here. All right, so we've got our onions browned. I'd say we're at about 30% browned. We could go a little further, but I can see one of my microphones, the battery's starting to die. So, you know, if all things being equal, I'd give this another 2-3 minutes, but I don't want to lose my equipment. So this is close enough. You know, we got it about 30-40% brown. That's good. I mean, you don't want to burn the onions, but the more you can brown them, just the better. You're just adding, you're building flavor, right? 'Cause you're just changing the character of the onions, making them just taste so much better. Right now, at this stage, we can add the carrot. And I put a little bit of salt on. I'm going like with a pinch, right? I like to add, instead of adding the salt in one go, I like to individually salt the different vegetables because it just helps to encourage them to sweat, right? Because the next stage of cooking this, it's going to steam a bit, okay? But it's going to steam in its own moisture, right? We're not adding water to this, right? We're just going to let it make its own water, and that's crucial. And just notice the onions are still on the bottom, so they're going to continue to brown, okay? Until there's going to be a point where I notice the collard greens have welted down, and at that point I'm going to add the coconut. You don't add the coconut right away because it'll start to absorb the moisture, and you want the moisture at this stage because you want everything to steam, right? So I'm going to add another pinch of salt. That's all the salt we need. All right, so we've probably added all in about a teaspoon of salt to this dish. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to put a lid on this. Pretty good fit with the lid. I'm going to turn it right down to about 1/3 power. Okay. That's enough to keep the steam going and all that sort of stuff, but lowering the risk of burning things. Okay, and I'm going to leave this for about 10 minutes, just like this. All right, so we'll see you in 10 minutes. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. Let's have a look at what we got here. I can tell the collard greens have welted down. Onions are all nicely brown. The whole house just smells. The combination of the browned onions and just the spices in there, right? It's just all just fantastic. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. The trick with this dish, for it to be sort of ideal, is that you don't want it soggy. You kind of want it, it's a vegetable dish, and it should have a dry, I mean not dry, but like not a wet, soggy texture. Based on the amount of green I have here, you can go anywhere from 1 to 1.5 to 2 cups of coconut. Based on the volume here, this isn't my biggest pan, and the pan's not even full, so I'm going to go with 1 heaping cup of coconut. You can add more. Of course, the more, let's put a little bit more in. I mean, the more the merrier. There we go. So I got about maybe 1 cup and 1/3 of coconut with this. I mean, it's all a question of, coconut's not cheap, but the smell of it, the taste of it, the flavor. So the coconut pulls some of the moisture out of the greens, right? So again, it contributes to it being sort of a dry dish. I'm not using the right word, but you don't want this to be a wet mush. You want it to be kind of light with a degree of, I guess kind of looseness to it, not a clumpiness. For the ideal texture and presentation, and just the way it works in terms of the way it's supposed to be. And I've been to all different kinds of restaurants, and this is made in many, many different ways. I've been in restaurants where they sell something called Thoran, where it's just literally like steamed cabbage, and there's no coconut, and there's no spices, and they haven't browned the onions, and they haven't added any other vegetables. And then, of course, I've seen, fantastic applications, right? For me, I mean, I've played with this over the years. So I grew up eating this kind of food to some extent. One of my best friends' family's from Sri Lanka, and I would go over there all the time and raid his mother's fridge. We'd watch movies in the basement, and it was the greatest thing ever. Because, I sort of more of meat and potatoes type situation growing up. So this was a fantastic experience that I got to have. Anyway, this is, you know, in my memory anyway, the closest thing I can come to my friend's mother's cooking. Nothing comes close to her cooking. She's like a wizard. Okay, so now I have this turned down to about 1/4, and I'm going to let that go about another 10 minutes just to make sure that I've fully cooked the collard greens. Collard greens take about 20 minutes to cook all in, right? They take a bit of time. So I'm going to give this another 10 minutes like this. Halfway through, I'll take the lid off and I'll monitor the moisture level, okay? If it seems like it's getting wet, I'll actually replace this lid with this one, which actually lets some of the steam out. But I don't want it to burn on. I don't want it to get too dry, and I don't want it to get too wet. But I think it's okay with this lid. This lid isn't a perfect fit either. There's some spaces where steam can come out, but this will keep a lot of that heat in. So it should be okay, right? But also because I've stirred it all around, you know, before I had the onion and the spices with the carrot on top, with the greens on top. So the onions were continuing to brown, all that stuff was sort of where it was. Now I've mixed it all around, so the collard greens and the carrot and everything else, all that's in contact with the bottom of the pan. So it's kind of a wetter, I mean, we haven't changed anything, but it's kind of the material that's in contact with the surface of the pan is more wet than what we had before. We had sort of like dry with wet on top. Now we've got all kind of wet to some extent. So it's less risk of burning. But I'm belaboring this explanation, but I'm just trying to give as good an explanation as I can of the technique here. I'll let that go for 10 minutes and we'll come back and have a look and have a taste. All right, so that's been a good 10 minutes. Let's have a look at what we got here. Oh man. The smell of all the spices and the coconut, just the combination of things, right? Here, I'll put it on a plate and bring it up so you can see. It's just a beautiful, healthy, green, right? Very colorful, beautiful side dish. I got the right texture here, not too wet, not too dry sort of thing. Loose, soft, fluffy, right? That's just perfect. Couldn't ask for more. Now at this stage, I just put it on the plate, but I forgot. I was so excited when I took the lid off, I forgot. So at this stage you put, now that you're done cooking and you're about to serve, right, you put lemon on, right? So this is an enormous lemon. I think just one wedge might be enough because it's a huge lemon. Like this one wedge is the size of some lemons, and I haven't got a completely full pot here. So, I mean, this is all a question of taste. I know if I go too acidic, Mrs. Maritime Gardening is not too happy about that. So, you know, you got to step your acidity up gradually. You don't want to go too acidic. Anyway, let me try that, see where we are. Nowhere near supper time now, but this is for the purpose of the video. So it should have that I mean, yeah, a lot of South Asian cuisine has this characteristic where you have something like a curry, which is spicy, then you have something like this, which is kind of sweet, and you have something like a rice, which is kind of basic, right? You have all these different contrasts. We have these kind of mixed pickle, which is a very intense, sort of bitter, sour, spicy, salty thing. All these different intensities on one plate. It's just a fantastic experience to eat. Yeah. Now for this one here, that was just the right amount of lemon. There's enough lemon there that you can have that freshness, but not so much that it takes away from the sweetness of the coconut. Actually could have put a little more coconut in there, but it's fine. There's enough. You want enough coconut that it's a sweetness. You can taste the sweetness of the coconut. I think I got that just right. It's really good. So, depending on what green you use, I mean, collard green has the same texture as a cabbage, but it doesn't have the same taste. Collard green has a more intense taste than cabbage, in my opinion. So if you use cabbage for this, it actually is a bit sweeter because the cabbage is more toned down. I don't know the right word for it, but cabbage is not as intense as collard greens. Collard greens they're greener and they're more intense. I don't know if they're more healthy or not, but they certainly look more healthy and they're easy to grow in the garden. So Thoran with collard greens, it's a great way to use them up, especially if you're into that type of cuisine. I mean, this goes with just about anything, right? But it goes especially well with cuisine from that part of the world. So maybe give it a try, see what you think. I would have this with picnic ham. It would go just fine with a ham dinner. I'd be fine with this, ham and mashed potatoes, that'd be great. Or this would be great with just fried chicken. It'd be great with fried chicken. Fried chicken, some rice and beans, something like that, would be fine, right? So it goes with lots of things. You don't have to be some sort of, South Asian cuisine aficionado to use this with different things, right? So maybe give that a try, see what you think. I don't think you'll be sorry because it's just such a great way to use, and you're adding all these healthy different vegetables, and right, you're just getting all these nice greens into your body. It's just a great way to use up your collard greens. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Check out my Substack page where I will in detail write out the recipe and instructions for this recipe at some point in time. At the end of every month, I always do a recipe, and those are always free for everyone. You don't have to be a paid subscriber to check out my recipes on my Substack page. Anyway, other than that, hope you found that interesting, and until next time, have fun in your garden, have fun in your kitchen. Thanks for watching. If you want to help support the channel and everything I'm doing here, become a paid subscriber to my weekly column at maritimegardening.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $30 a year. It's all about gardening and a little bit about cooking, and I pump out a new article every Tuesday morning. And as a bonus for subscribing, every time I get 100 new paid subscribers, I will randomly choose one lucky winner to receive a $100 gift certificate at the online garden store of their choice. So maybe give one of those things a try. It'll help out a lot. Thanks and happy gardening.